When's the last time we actually went to war to fight for our freedom?
We won't even defend our southern border.
Should we have been in Iraq?
I was a huge proponent of it at the time, but in retrospect, absolutely not.
So was I. I don't think we should have been there.
Yeah.
I think that was all for Cheney and KBR, Halliburton. I think we were in Afghanistan for way too. I don't even think we're defending the country. Like, why the fuck are people even signing up to go to war for what? For what? Whose war? It's not our fucking war. We're funding the Taliban $40 to $87 million
A week.
A week.
I've been a recovering neocon for 6 years now. Like the foolishness with which we ricocheted around the world, intervening, think it was in our best interest, when really we just overturned the table and created something worse in almost every single scenario, has led to almost, I mean, the hubris of the Pentagon is that they want to now tell other countries how to do counterinsurgency based on what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. The trust there that our political leaders or our generals would have our best interests in mind is totally broken. It's totally broken. I acknowledge that completely. And the last thing I want is my son deploying to the Donbass to defend Eastern Ukraine. Mm-hmm. I'm with you too. At the same time, I'm fearful of what happens when the institution gets abandoned completely. And maybe it feels like the public school argument, like, hey, if we take all the Christians and people of faith out of public schools, then they're really going to go, yeah, but you got to save your kid. Right? And I'm going to save my kid. And that's the view. It's just there isn't an alternative right now to the United States military. Mm-hmm. There just isn't. And I don't want to lose patriotic influence over that. So my prayer, because if Donald Trump doesn't win and Kamala Harris is the commander-in-chief, what's happening inside our military is going to go on another level of warp speed. Mm-hmm. And you're going to see even more guys retiring, guys and gals retiring, and even more of the DEI woke focus, and it's going to continue to spiral. If Trump does win and goes at it, I think it might be our last sort of chance to save this institution and turn it back to what it was, because it is a top-down organization. You put a SecDef in there who's focused on all the right things, get rid of all the things that are described in the book, and focus on warfighting, lethality, and training and standards, real standards. Not equity, but equality. Mm-hmm. You can do it. There's still the core there. But I share all your, I mean, what has Washington shown us in the last 20 years that we should trust them with how they'll use our young men? It's fair. I mean, Trump tried to use them on the border and they shut them down.
Our power grid's fucked. Our borders fucked. Our education system's fucked. Everything's fucked. That's the way it feels. Everything is fucked. And we're shipping all of our money overseas. And we should be, I mean, do you know anything about the power grid? Do you know how bad it is?
Super vulnerable. I mean, one EMP, one of the right strikes, and we're what happens when we're months without power?
I don't think they even need to do an EMP. We don't China produces all of our transformers, all of our solar, all of our wind, everything. And we don't even check it for malware or Trojan horses or any of these type of viruses that and even FBI Director Ray came out and said, yeah, they're in our grid and they're in our water treatment plants. And all they have to do is flip the switch. But we shipped 175 billion thus far to Ukraine.
So there's a chance to course correct it, but it would take a new Trump administration going after it really hard.
How would they correct it?
Well, first of all, you got to fire, you got to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. I mean, obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever, that was involved in any of the DEI woke shit, has got to go. Either you're in for war fighting, and that's it, and that's the only litmus test we care about. You got to get DEI and CRT out of military academies, so you're not training young officers to be baptized in this type of thinking. And then, whatever the standards, whatever the combat standards were, say, in, 1995, let's just make those the standards. And as far as recruiting, to hire the guy that, did Top Gun Maverick and create some real ads that motivate people to want to serve. And there's lots of other ways in which you could identify who gets promoted and what, but there's an ethos change. I mean, there's a reason people don't want to serve, because they don't trust that their senior leaders are going to have their best interest in mind in combat. I know there were mistakes made on our tours all over the place, but I, at least for the most part, had a sense that my senior leaders were committed to the completion of the mission for the right reasons. And maybe there were strategic differences and all that other stuff, and it wasn't always perfect, but that trust is broken, and you have to reestablish that trust by putting in no-nonsense warfighters in those positions who aren't going to cater to the socially correct garbage.
I mean, you don't think we need to gut the entire institution? You think this is just coming from the top down?
I think right now my assessment based on talking to, is that it's a top-down, bottom-up problem. Is that you've got top-down political generals who've gained rank by playing by all the wrong rules that cater to the ideologues in Washington, D.C. And so they'll do any social justice, gender, climate, extremism crap because it gets them checked to the next level and gets them closer to the political appointees who don't know anything about the military, really, other than they want a new first here and a new first there, and can we get the first trans this or whatever, just nonsense. And then now you have a junior corps, which, listen, their incentive structure, whether it was in university or at service academies or just coming through college, is belief in these things. That diversity is our strength, that equity, that the standards could be racially biased, that showing up on time is a social construct, all these. So if you spend enough time with those two things meeting, you could have a wholesale takeover of the Defense Department. I do think there's still a core of mostly silent. They also pushed out a lot of vaccine folks because of the vaccine, obviously.
I think
that's another one. Like, I think that was a purge.
Engineered as well.
That's a purge of people. That's a purge of people of conscience. If you have enough of a conscience, whether it's faith, belief, or whatever, purge out. Patriot extremism, purge out. So there was a big push of a lot of those people in the middle out. I still think, and I know enough guys and talked to enough who said, hey, I want to be in for the right reasons. I know what's wrong. It's jacked up. If I say something, I'm canned. But in a new environment, I think there's still a core there.